Every path, every road, every trail has a history. Sometimes that history is made up of unexplained disappearances, disturbing creature attacks, and unfathomable dark mysteries. Today's episode features stories about drives and roads and all the terrifying things that might be found on them. Enjoy, and be sure to send me your scariest hunting experiences soon at darkstories.org. Also, check out eeriecast.com for more terrifying podcasts. By the way, I just finished reading Bleach, a manga that has nothing to do with cleaning laundry. Somebody comment a really good manga I should read next. Many thanks. Now, let's begin. GPS Route Recalculating. From Sean D. It started with a phone call. One of my friends was in a car accident. He had been crossing a highway on his moped when he was winged by a car that had run a red light. Whoever it was just kept on driving. He was understandably shook up and just wanted to see a familiar face while mending up in the hospital. I, however, was unfamiliar with the city he was in, and I told him it may take a while for me to get there, even using a GPS. So I entered the address he gave me into the app, a handy GPS. It showed color-coded roads. The traffic and construction levels determine the color. The roads were full green, an excellent sign for no traffic or roadwork. I set it to navigation mode, listening to what sounded like a female version of Stephen Hawking giving me directions. I'd left around 4 p.m. The weather was clear and I was making excellent time. Until, that is, the GPS told me it was rerouting. Confused, I looked at the map. Despite the roads looking largely empty, the map was now showing lots of red. Erring on the side of caution, I followed the new route, a long, winding road. Things went from weird to unnerving as the voice of the navigator became more and more mechanical the further I drove. Miles later, I heard, "Your destination is on your left." The voice by now was so mechanical, it was alien. Looking around outside, I noticed I was nowhere near a hospital, but there was what appeared to be a drugstore, all boarded up. My fuel was dangerously low. If I tried to drive anywhere, I would wind up having to walk to a gas station. Checking the map, not only could I not see a single gas station nearby, I couldn't even find the name of the town. I looked around and what I saw filled me with unease. Along the roads, abandoned vehicles were parked eerily neatly, but all the buildings I could see were clearly empty. All the buildings I could see around me were clearly empty or run down in shambles. I did not want to be here after dark. Despite how new or clean some of the abandoned vehicles looked, I wasn't seeing evidence of anyone around. Desperate and scared, I came up with the idea of siphoning any gas I could find from an especially abandoned-looking car. Illegal, I know, but what choice did I have? I was vaguely familiar with how the process worked. I just needed a way to get what I would need to do it. That would require me to explore around the town somewhat. My phone, still on the GPS app, showed no bars and required a Wi-Fi network to access and operate the GPS. This puzzled me as it didn't need Wi-Fi for the app before. I think it would just download the maps I needed before the mobile network cut out. As I explored the lifeless streets, I felt watched. Watched by what, I didn't know, but I could sense something. As evening fell into night, the encroaching dark terrified me. By luck or perhaps mercy, I found what I needed to siphon off some gas from another vehicle. I chose a vehicle that would likely have the same kind of fuel I needed. However, the process was the most time-consuming and nerve-wracking moment of my life. Much like my ride, all the vehicles had little fuel left in them. I tried not to dwell on the fate of the missing owners. It was much later by the time I was able to go back to my car with enough fuel. I couldn't run fast enough to get back to my car to get out of this strange town. As I drove away, I saw in the rearview mirror something squatting. It was large, shapeless, and definitely watching my rapid escape. When I made it to the correct destination and to the hospital, I told the story of what happened to my injured friend. Naturally, he didn't believe a word of it, but I know what I went through was no dream. And though I couldn't find the road to that town when I retried to visit my friend, I know what resides out there is still hunting. The next traveler may not be as lucky as I was. Warning: the following story depicts a near assault of an implied sexual nature. Uber escape. From Anonymous. I'm a 21-year-old student. Since I study in college 3 hours away from my hometown, I reside in a hostel. One day, my aunt got very sick. Her kids were all grown up, and that day they were out of town. Since my hostel and college were in the town she lived in, my mom asked me to take an Uber and go visit her. My roommate wanted to come along, as it was about 11 p.m. at night. I asked him to stay in the room just in case I couldn't make it to college tomorrow, as I'll be needing the notes. He agreed and told me to be careful. I requested an Uber. Soon the driver came up with a big white car in front of my hostel door. As I opened the back door, I saw the Uber driver. He was a man in his 50s, and he was looking at me kind of weird. As I began to sit down, he told me to come up to the front. "I'm good in the back," I replied, with a confused voice. He then insisted, which really creeped me out. So I got out and sat in the front. I'm not sure what I was thinking. Maybe I just didn't want a problem. We were then going to my aunt's place, when suddenly he took a wrong turn. Sir, this isn't the right way," I told him. "It's okay. This is a shortcut. You've never been to this side before," he replied. He was right. I don't live here, so I didn't know much of this side. He kept making random small talk, which made me more and more uncomfortable. I was texting my roommate. He told me to ditch the Uber driver and just come home. As I was about to text a reply, the Uber driver took my phone. "What are you—" "Come on, talk to me. Who are you texting?" he asked. Please just give me my phone back. That's very rude," I replied angrily. He apologized, but he didn't give me my phone back. He placed the phone in the glove compartment, which was broken. He said that I can get it back after the ride was over. This was really freaky, but it wasn't even the worst part. After a bit of silence, he said something. "I have a gift for you. A gift to apologize for my behavior." This scared the crap out of me. I had no idea what he was talking about. He dragged his left arm in the back of my seat, and he pulled out a gun. He loaded it and said, "You sure like to play hard to get, don't you?" I was horrified. I tried to keep my cool, but I was scared to death, right down to my very core. At the time, I realized my roommate was right. I should have brought him with me. My phone kept buzzing in the glove compartment with a text notification. Before I could say or do anything, the driver said my real name. I lost my cool here. I never go on social media with my real name, not even on Uber. So how in the world did he know my name? I asked him, demanding some information. "I've been watching you for weeks." This man sounded crazy. "You probably don't remember, but you canceled a ride on me not too long ago. I'm sorry, but that made me a bit angry." Seriously? I thought. This guy is seeking revenge on me for canceling an Uber ride. It can't be just that, or he's just actually psychotic. He went on. "We can solve this the easy way, or the hard way." I didn't know what was going on. He then opened his belt and zipper. I knew what he wanted. Just as he began to put the gun on my head, a group of college students came passing by. He quickly hid the gun in his legs and pretended everything was fine. In that brief second, I noticed the doors were unlocked and we weren't going fast enough anymore for a sudden escape to hurt me, at least not too much. I quickly grabbed my phone and jumped from the car. I ended up dislocating my shoulder. I got up and ran as fast as I could. I called my friend. I didn't know where I was at the time. I was just running, and I came across a bank. The watchman there was standing outside. I told him that a crazy Uber driver was after me. He hid me in his cabin, and I called my friend again, and he finally picked up. I begged him to come get me. As I was hiding under the desk, I kept peeking out. I saw his car roaming on the streets, coming back and forth. That man was looking for me. After a few minutes, he went away. My friend came in about 30 minutes later. He asked how I ended up in this place. I told him the whole story. I thanked the watchman for his help, and I went on with my friend, who took me to a doctor for my shoulder. This was the scariest moment in my life. I never did make it to my aunt's place that day. Snake Man on Dead Man's Pass, Oregon. From C. Philly 100. Back in 2014, I picked up my life to move out west to Orcas Island, Washington. I had my 2 dogs with me, and I was driving my 2002 Toyota Tacoma at the time. To get out to northwestern Washington, you have to first go over Dead Man's Pass in Oregon. Nestled away in the Blue Mountains of Oregon State, the place's name, Dead Man's Pass, came from an incident during the so-called Bannock War of 1878, when a teamster driving a wagon through the pass was killed by a group of Northern Paiute and Shoshone people from the nearby Indian Agency. Modern-day Interstate 84, which takes you over the pass, runs along the same path as the original Oregon Trail. Anyway, onto the story. It was nighttime. I was tired, which is when you know you need to pull over and take a rest. I was looking for a good spot to get off the road for some shut-eye. That's when I saw a blur of a shadow running out across the road in front of me. I was so tired. I just rubbed my eyes and figured it must have been my imagination. It happened so fast, I knew of no animal or person who could cross the road with that speed. Finally, I found a pullout. I turned off the road there before letting my dogs out to do their business. I was stretching my legs, having spent almost 15 hours driving. My dogs suddenly began barking. They charged into the tree line repeatedly before darting back to where I was standing. I mean, they were really barking. I thought maybe they had found a bear or something similar. I was trying to get them to come back into the truck, but I was having some considerable difficulty, as every time I had one in hand, the other one would go charging at the tree line again. Then the one in my hand would pull away to relieve that one, who would run back like they were taking turns protecting me. But from what? I scanned the tree line to try to see what they were charging at. Before long, I saw something. 2 red glowing eyes rising up from about 2 feet off the ground, up to a full height of 10 feet in the air. It all happened in one fluid motion. I jumped in my truck and turned on my headlights to get a gauge on just what the heck we were looking at here. And boy, did I wish I hadn't. To my absolute horror, I saw the most monstrous apparition I've ever seen in my life. Right there, dead to rights in the foggy yellow light, was a giant serpentine creature, covered in shiny bluish-green and yellow scales. It had arms and legs like those of an extremely well-built man. The arms hung about halfway down its body and were equipped with massive shiny black claws. It appeared to have a long tail dragging behind it. It seemed to be tasting the air with its tongue, which was also long and black. It glared at my dogs, who continued taking turns charging at it. But then it looked up at me, or rather at my headlights, and what it did next still gives me chills. It let out this sinister hissing sound that almost sucked the air out of my lungs with its apparent seething rage. I'm no expert, but its head shape was similar to that of a salamander, with the eyes slightly bulging off to either side, but instead of black, these eyes were bright red, and when it opened its mouth I could see rows of sharp white teeth all up and down. I grabbed my dog's leashes and ran out in front of my truck, grabbing one and then the other, hoisting my dogs back into the cab. Before jumping in after them, locking the doors, and cranking the key in the ignition, the snake man was still just standing there, tasting the air with its tongue and glaring at my truck. I peeled out in reverse and barely felt the thumps of the asphalt shoulder under my tires before squealing out onto the road. When I looked back in my rear view, I could see that thing just standing out in the middle of the road where we had just been, but it didn't appear to be chasing us. It was just kind of standing there. I didn't stop driving until daybreak, as I was no longer tired at that point. In fact, quite the opposite, really. I can't help but wonder if that creature had something to do with my being out there on such an aptly named pass in the middle of the night, or if we just happened to cross paths while it made its way through the mountains, doing whatever it is snake men like to do out there. At any rate, if you ever find yourself out in the Blue Mountains of Eastern Oregon, be on the lookout, because there's something out there, and you may not get lucky like I did that night all those years ago. I'm glad I didn't accept that ride. From Kingley. So, this is something I need to get off my chest, as I've never told anyone before. A few years ago, I experienced the strangest thing that's ever occurred to me. Honestly, my skin still crawls every time I think about it. At the time, I was in my mid-20s, a college dropout that was just struggling to survive paycheck to paycheck. Back then, we only had one POS car. She was a very old pickup that we had named Gladys. In all honesty, she was only being held together with duct tape and wish. However, she was always reliable, and I thank the Lord every day we didn't have to live in her too. In fact, if it wasn't for my then boyfriend, now husband, for the sake of this story we'll call him L, I would most certainly be homeless. At the time, only having Gladys ultimately wasn't a big issue. We worked opposite schedules. With L being an overnight floor manager at a warehouse and me being on a day shift, it at least made transportation simple. In the mornings when he got off, I would pick him up and he would drive me to work before he headed home to sleep. Then at night he would get me, we would switch, and I would take him back to work before I went home to rest. Anyway, on that day, it was a Wednesday, which is my Friday basically, I was very ready to have my 2 days off. I worked 10-hour shifts at a local-owned mom-and-pop shop. I won't say which, for obvious reasons. I was paid in peanuts and had no benefits, but hey, it paid the bills. Elle dropped me off a few minutes early, gave me a kiss goodbye, and I gave Gladys a pat on the tailgate before he drove off. I always arrive early so I can get my drawer pre-counted and ready before we officially open at 10 a.m. Due to this, the owner, who we'll call R, gave me third key privilege, which really just means more work and responsibilities without the extra pay. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, taking off my jacket to take it to the office. After grabbing my paperwork from the safe and counting my till, I saw R pull up and park in the back. She had a tradition of sitting out in her car for about 10 minutes and having a smoke before she came in. She referred to it as a pre-shift meditation. Not being a fan of smoking myself, I just call it a bad habit. Anyway, she stepped inside and threw me a surprised look as I smiled at her. "Morning, R," I chirped. "How was the meditation?" She blinked a few times before looking over her shoulder. "Oh, sorry, sugar. I thought I saw you out back by the dumpsters when I was walking up. Assumed you were tossing trash you missed last night." Now it was my turn to be confused. Nope. I think I'm here currently," I said, giving myself a pinch on the arm. "Ow, yeah, I sure am. Unless you're going around mistaking me for homeless people," I exclaimed playfully. R gave me a stern look before cracking a smile and crossing her arms. "You really are a ham, ain't you, boy?" She rolled her eyes and walked past me to the office. "Hey," she threw a look over her shoulder. "Do me a favor and count up your till. It's bank day. I need the deposits." "Yeah, you got it. I already counted the tills, so all you need to do is get the deposit from the safe." She gave me a wide smile. "Thank you, sugar. You're always on top of it." Aside from a few fickle and rude customers, it was a good, smooth day. Our favorite regular came by to get her pack of gum and a 6-pack of beer. She looked like a tanned, bleach-blonde leather handbag. Truthfully, she was a hoot, and I kinda wished she was my aunt or something. She was always telling just the most outlandish stories from when she was young. After I took my lunch, the rest of the day played out on fast forward, all the way up to 7:15. That's 45 minutes before closing, and there were no customers in the store. I tried to fight the boredom. I really did. After ho-humming a bit, I decided to go to the office and check my phone. My heart sank, however, when I saw 3 missed calls and a text from Elle. "Hey babe, I'm sorry for the last-minute message. My sister was in an accident. She was clipped by a car while on a bike ride. Her leg's broken and has a pretty bad road rash. They have her doped up on the good stuff right now, and the doctor said she will be okay. Thank God. Will you be able to order or find a ride to the hospital when you get off? I need you here." I felt sick as the tears in my eyes began to fall. I read the message a second time and clutched my chest. My God. I looked at the clock, 7:20. I needed to go. After tearfully explaining what was happening to R, she nodded and put her hand on my shoulder. 40 minutes never hurt anybody, right? Just count up the tills and go on and get," she said, giving me a sympathetic smile. "You gonna need a ride, sugar?" Considering I usually have a bad reaction to cigarette smoke, and that her car probably smelled like an ashtray, I politely declined. "No thanks, I'll just order a ride through one of the apps." She gave my shoulder one last squeeze, and I grabbed my till to count. I didn't waste any time at all. After I finished up, I said goodbye and headed out the door. I ordered a rideshare and waved R off as she pulled out to the lot exit in the back side of the store. The app said it would be about 10 minutes. I bit my lip and cursed to myself, and in my panic I began pacing. Stay calm, I thought. All will be well. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw some movement going around the back of the building. What was that? I said to no one in particular. I unlocked my phone and checked the app again. It now said 15 minutes. I tapped my foot nervously and looked back where I saw the activity. I got time to check it out, I whispered to myself, and against my better judgment, I started the short walk to the back of the building. As I rounded the corner, I saw another stir of movement and froze. There was a person standing by the dumpster. Even though their back was turned to me, I immediately recognized the short, stocky shape of the store owner. I breathed a sigh of relief and began walking closer. Jesus Christ, R, you scared me, I blurted. Look, I'm sorry I goofed on you earlier, but this is just mean. R turned around to face me, and my heart skipped a beat. I stopped, dead in my tracks. Suddenly, I got a strange feeling as she locked eyes with me. Oh, hey, she smiled. I felt bad about your situation and thought I'd offer you a ride again. I felt my mouth go dry. The way the words slipped from her mouth sounded so odd, but also strangely inviting. It was correct, but so wrong. Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate that, but I already ordered a ride. I don't want to put you out, I responded. I fought the urge to run. For all I knew, it was just a tone-deaf joke. Oh, come on, buddy. I can get you there safe. She was still smiling that smile. It softly beckoned me like a Venus flytrap. However, the way she spoke made me flinch. The odd emphasis on certain words and drawn-out nature made me both want to run to and away from her, like trying to fight the urge to vomit, a push and pull on my now trembling body. Just then, my phone pinged and I glanced at it. My skin went cold. New message from R. Hey, sugar. I'm hoping you're still there. Do me a favor, I got halfway home before I realized I didn't lock the door. You have your key, right? I glanced back up to whatever I've been speaking to for the past 5 minutes. This time I looked closer and started to notice the little things, the subtle mistakes in the visage of what stood before me. The thing that was only pretending to be R shifted ever so slightly. Its eyes were a little too big, and its smile a little too wide. Its skin looked a little too tight, and the teeth a little too sharp. I began to sweat, as its eyes flicked down to my phone and back up to me, never losing that smile. "What's the matter, love? Don't you need a ride?" it cooed. I shook my head. "No, really, that's okay." I gulped nervously, taking a half step back. "I'm all set." Just then, like a sign or a twist of fate, or sheer dumb luck, my app went off, informing me that my driver had arrived. I cleared my throat and backed up a little more. "I gotta go now, so bye." Without missing a beat and downplaying the awkwardness of that farewell, I turned on my heel and began to calmly walk away. Calmly, that is, until I dared a glance back just before turning the corner. Now, the fake R was nowhere to be seen. That prickle of fear struck me, similar to losing track of a spider in your room. After that revelation and the absence of a presumed threat, the flight response fully kicked in and I ran like a little punk. I'm not ashamed to admit it. After apologizing and giving an excuse to a very startled driver, I finally got the heck out of there. It took everything I had during the 20-minute ride to the hospital not to burst into tears. I had so many questions. What on earth was that thing? Was that the same thing that R saw this morning? Did it pretend to be me and try to speak to her? How did it know about L's sister? Was it there all day listening to us? I shuddered at the thought. Why didn't it chase me if it wanted me so bad? Maybe I had to agree with it on my own. I, unfortunately, would never find out the answers to these questions. I quit the job immediately, doing my best to remove it from my memory. I never told L about it, so I was horrified when he brought up R the following week. "Whoa, hey babe, looks like that lady that owned the store you used to work at went missing yesterday." I nearly dropped my phone when he said that. "What?" He gave me a soft look and patted my hand. Apparently, R's car was found at the store yesterday morning by the leather handbag lady. She was not inside, so she made a report with the police. They never found her. To this day, I still occasionally pray for R. I pray that she's okay and is hopefully just missing. I also pray that if that wasn't the case, and whatever happened to her was by the hands of that thing, that it was fast and merciful. Finally, I pray the hardest that the last thing she witnessed before she vanished into thin air wasn't something that was pretending to be me. Thank you for listening to another unsettling episode of Unexplained Encounters. You can send us your story to have it narrated on the show at darkstories.org. Unexplained Encounters is an EerieCast original series. You can find other horror-themed podcasts at EerieCast.com, such as Redwood Bureau, a fictional anthology series, Freaky Folklore, a documentary-style series about myths and cryptids around the world, Destination Terror, a show about the most haunted places, and Tales from the Break Room, another show I host all about the scary things that happen to people at work. Again, that's EerieCast.com. By the way, if you want fewer annoying ads and you want to support what we do, consider going to EerieCast.com/plus to sign up for EerieCast Plus. That unlocks all our podcasts with all but host-read ads removed. Until next time, stay safe out there and stay creepy, because this world is a strange one.